hot topic for content creators. This is where I pitch a hot topic to you guys. You guys turn around if you feel so inclined, and you create your own video on said topic. So tonight we're doing representation in fiction. That's right. Representation in fiction. And you are going to learn how to write characters whose experiences are outside of your own. And this lesson tonight comes courtesy of someone named Diana M. Pho. So here's a little background on Diana. Diana is a Hugo Award nominated editor at Tor Books and Tor.com Publishing. She is also a published academic, playwright, and, go figure, activist. For several years, she traveled the country as a professional speaker about social justice issues and fandom, and has been interviewed by many media outlets on the subject, including CBS's Insider Edition, MSN.com, BBC America, the Travel Channel, HGTV, and the Science Channel. So here is your expert for tonight. Your expert on this one tonight. So this article originally appeared in the February 2019 edition of the Writer's Digest. Let's just take a quick peek and see what was going on with the Writer's Digest, February of 2019. We have, check out the headlines. Discover your voice. It says, diverse, how to write diverse, authentic characters. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Cassandra Clare graces the cover of this magazine. Cassandra Clare, the YA sensation, unveils the practical magic behind her Shadow Hunters series. All right, let's get into the article, shall we? Representation in fiction, how to write characters whose experiences are outside of your own. As publishing endeavors to address inclusion and diverse representation in fiction, an inevitable question arises. Can authors write characters whose experience is outside of their own? Questions of representation in literature are a tale as old as time, coupled with that other great conundrum. How can we write about experiences outside of our own? The best fiction has the ability to transport readers into another's shoes and make readers consider a new perspective. And while the question of writing the other is evergreen, the assessment of how to do so successfully is an ever-evolving story. When I think about why writing across difference, is so important, I remember my childhood. Oh, here we go. I remember my childhood and how books changed my perception of the world and of myself. Two specific books were a huge influence: Lawrence Yep's 1982 novel, Dragon of the Lost Sea, and George Sheldon's 1960 book, The Cricket in Times Square. But between them, their treatment of Chinese characters and culture couldn't be more different. Yep, spent much time doing research into Chinese myths and legends before even taking up the project, and I was completely swept away by the adventures of the dragon princess Shimmer and the human orphan Thorn on their quest to restore the inland sea. The Cricket in Times Square, on the other hand, featured racist stereotypes. Sai Fong, who teaches the newspaper boy Mario about the importance of crickets in Chinese culture, speaks with a broad, transliterated accent, and works out of a derelict laundromat. Mario and his family benefit from talented Chester and the cricket, while Sai Fong remains a mystical minor character. While both books were praised during their time, The Cricket in Times Square sent a certain message about Asian characters. We all talk in broken English, held ignoble jobs, and acted only in service to the white characters. Yep's story, however, showed how characters who looked like me could be heroes and demonstrated that not all fantasies must take place in medieval Europe. Several lessons for today's authors can be drawn here. One is that writers are capable of composing stories that uplift the marginalized, or alternatively, one that push them down. The second is that while Sheldon might not have realized how racist his portrayal was, and certainly the mostly white literary community of the time didn't either, it doesn't excuse the fact that the book was biased content. That's a claim. That's actually a claim being made right there that would have to be proven in some shape, fashion, or form. Finally, a third lesson is the understanding that writing effective, diverse stories is a skill. That's another claim that, or an assertion rather, that can be learned. Later on in high school, I picked up Robert Olin Butler's 1992 short story collection, A Good Scent from a Strange Mountain. I was astounded by the way Butler captured life in the Vietnamese immigrant community, which resonated with my own family experiences. Writing the other is possible. It's simply a matter of doing so respectfully and responsibly. It also has to make sense within the context of the story, too. If the quote unquote, so far I'll just want to say, if the quote unquote marginalized, okay, the marginalized character is not meant to be the main character, then they don't, there's no really right or wrong. There's the only wrong way to write them is writing them so it doesn't make sense within the context of the story. Writing the character makes sense within the context of the story, then it's not wrong, because the author is the authority of what is right and what is wrong within the context of their own fiction. Moving right along, writing is hard, but writing #own voices is harder. In conversations about the challenge of getting published and the current movements around diversity and inclusion, one misconception from many aspiring authors is that marginalized writers are getting an quote unquote advantage. That's actually something that can be proved based on traditional publishing, the practices of traditional publishing, and how they're basically just ignoring any kind of submissions that are coming from a certain demographic, that demographic being mostly of the male and of the pale variety, which is an example of bias in the literal sense, prejudice even. Let's see, historically, culturally dominant voices have had a leg up in publishing. And then in parentheses, they say, typified by straight, white, able-bodied men. So there's the demographic. Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about. So now all they've done to become more inclusive and kind of make traditional publishing more diverse, the only thing they've done is just turn the tables. It's not even turning the tables, really, because that's to say that literally no individual from a quote unquote marginalized group was even capable of getting published back in the day, which that's not even true. That's not even true. There's all types of diverse. There's already diversity in publishing dating back, hundreds of years. We're talking hundreds of years. There's been diversity in publishing, But now all they're doing is using that as an excuse to be prejudiced against whom? This very demographic that this activist has so clearly laid out: straight, white, able-bodied men.